Okay, so first question. When you're very, very first thinking about framing a shot, why am I such a better drummer than you? Our guest today is an extraordinary film director who has brought his unique cinematic vision to artists including MIA, John Legend, and the Shins, brands including Samsung, VW, Powerade, and Hyundai, and film content for HBO with representation including the Directors Bureau and Ridley Scott and Associates. Julian, welcome.
Thank you.
Your body of work has a very distinctive and dense visual style. What has shaped that aesthetic?
Yeah, I think it's just me. From a very young age, I wanted to have some sort of style. And how was that manifested? In the way I dress. I don't wear a lot of color, but there's a lot of color in my work. I'm of Mexican descent. There's a lot of color in that culture. There's a lot of flavor and color in my family. So maybe some of that boisterous energy came from that. Growing up without a lot of money, I was really into adventure. I also grew up as a Mormon, right? So it also felt very rigid. So what can I do to spice up life? That combination of things, like, can I have this adventure in my backyard? It's those sort of things that somehow get integrated into my work. And even if it's a script that's, for a commercial, like, how can I then put myself into it? Because that's what I'm getting hired for, my voice, right? For who I am. I want somebody to see whatever it is that I'm making, if it's a movie or a TV show or a commercial or a music video, to feel and to be reminded of themselves, to see themselves on the screen, tapping into sort of the primal human experience. And then when you do that and you can see it on the screen, then other people recognize it. And it's like, ooh, that made me feel something. And that's the goal for me, connecting.
You began shooting music videos. How did that start? And how did you evolve that part of your career?
Well, I started shooting music videos just because I loved music so much. I know as a kid, whatever music you listened to, that was like the way you dressed, that was the way you thought. I was so into it. It was my persona. I thought, well, I've got to make music videos because I'm a music guy. If I'm going to do this job that I found, well, I'm going to do it for the thing I love, for music. So I wanted to make music videos. I booked this video for Brandi Carlile. I wasn't really familiar with her music, but they called me and said, hey, she's on tour. Would you consider doing this tour video with her? And I'm just like, well, I've never done that, but I'll try it out. And I went on tour with her. We're on the bus, backstage, all of that stuff. That's all anybody wanted after. I became a guy that was doing that and doing live videos in this particular gritty way. I worked with Foster the People, I worked with the Shins, I worked with Band of Horses, all of these bands that I loved. And it's like, of course, yes. And it got to a point where I needed to make some money. So I started directing commercials and I loved it. It's really hard as a creative to know when to grow and change. I had to level up and learn how to work with bigger cameras, bigger lights, bigger crews, all of that sort of thing. It's hard to know when to do that.
How do you approach a spot like your Hyundai Live Loud? It's not necessarily a spot that can be detailed out on paper. It's so dense and it's so frenetic and crazy and fun and beautiful.
For that spot, it's about the moment. Whatever the moment is. I usually get a script that has a bunch of vignettes and it's like, well, we want to have a guy skateboarding. How would Julian Acosta do that? What would I do? I like to just think about what it is that I like, what it is that I do, and make the characters do it. There's a shot of a girl playing the drums on salt flats with fireworks around her. I remember wanting to play shows out in secret places. I wanted to do that. You go do it. I remember just having this caterpillar. Like, can we have a caterpillar? I actually had to fight for that. It was like $1,000 to get this stupid little worm in there. And I think at the end, I eventually was like, look, I'll pay for it then. Because I believed in it, right? And it made a difference, in the whole vibe. That's what I gravitate towards. What would be unexpected?
What's the funnest part of directing?
Well, working out stories for me. Stories help us navigate the world. The world is a hard place to figure out. What do I do? Well, we can watch a story and figure it out. We can connect, we can feel. That's the most fun for me. And connecting with people. I like to have fun too.
What's the first thing you do when you're going to an actor? What's your conversation like? How are you getting them into a good place as a director?
Certainly, I think that we need to be honest and authentic with actors, and we can problem solve with them. I think so much of directing with actors is being there for them, being vulnerable for them, doing as much prep work as we can, and they'll sense it. They'll know. They'll know when you're there and you're standing next to them and they can lean on you.
What are the essentials that you need for storytelling? What do you have to have?
You don't need a fancy camera. We are going to recognize truth in whatever it is that we're making. It doesn't matter what you fill it with, we're going to recognize that truth. Make it however you want to make it, but be honest about it.
Why is art essential to business?
I think perhaps sometimes we do ourselves a disservice by talking about it as just a brand, because it is also people, right? And how can we inject the people back into it? And part of it is through art. Certainly, we need art to help us communicate. To communicate ideas and emotion, there are people behind the brands. And that art can be the representation, the language of those people. And that's how we can connect. I don't know.
It's good.
Maybe, maybe not.
I'm buying it.
Who knows?
I'm buying it.